Good evening. Billions of Catholics are in mourning tonight after the death of Pope Francis, aged 88. Their leader, their shepherd and the sovereign of the Vatican. His flock is already gathering in churches on every continent, in every corner of the globe, praying for his spirit, celebrating his remarkable life. Grief certainly has no borders and their faith has no boundaries. In the days ahead, the biggest crowd will make its way here to St Peter's Square, a live shot now of the Holy City. Once inside the Basilica, the Pontiff's body will eventually lay in state, as is tradition, as the princes of the Church, its cardinals, prepare for the conclave in the weeks ahead, where the next Holy Father will be chosen. That, however, feels a long way off right now. News of the Pontiff's passing is just a few hours old, but centuries of Church tradition has begun on this Easter weekend, marking the crucifixion and the resurrection of Christ himself. Standing by to bring you reaction from around Australia and the world are our team of reporters. Welcome to this special edition of 7 News. Let's first bring in our foreign editor, Hugh Whitfield, who's with me now, who's covered Pope Francis's papacy. Hugh, good evening. For those of us joining now, how did this news unfold? It's only recent.
Yeah, Michael, it broke just before 6 p.m. on the Australian East Coast. An announcement made inside the Vatican at Casa Santa Maria, inside the Pope's private apartments, where his Chamberlain, the Cardinal Kevin Farrell, born in Ireland, made a very short statement to the cameras alongside three other cardinals. They were dressed in black. A statement saying that with deep sorrow I have to announce the death of our Holy Father Francis. The Bishop of Rome returned to the house of God. His whole life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and his church. And the last time, of course, we saw Pope Francis in public was over the Easter weekend, and this meeting with the Catholic Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, who was visiting Rome over the Easter weekend, invited inside the Pope's private apartments for a very brief meeting and an exchange of gifts between the two leaders. That was barely 24 hours ago, Michael, and now the death of His Holiness. Working
and exercising his faith to the very end, Hugh, and it being Easter weekend, Easter Sunday in particular, you have to think that the Pope's final thoughts and, I guess, his dedication was to his God to the very end.
Well, it follows on from that lengthy hospital stay, of course, in the beginning of the year, where the Pope cheated death twice, suffering from double pneumonia. The Pope then returning back to the Vatican with these spontaneous surprise appearances across Rome and inside St Peter's Basilica over the last couple of weeks. The Easter weekend is the most important and celebratory weekend on the Christian calendar, the Catholic calendar in particular, in any given year. In particular this year, in a Jubilee year for Catholics, 2025. It's very clear that the Pope wanted to be there for Easter. It would have been very difficult for Catholics around the world if there was no Pope in place over the Easter weekend. He didn't carry out any masses, he didn't celebrate Mass himself, but he was there among the faithful, and that would have been very important for those who had made the journey to Rome. And quite remarkable seeing him in the wheelchair being pushed around St Peter's Square and then in the Pope-mobile as well. Something that he was so keen to do throughout his papacy, in touch with people of all walks of life. Now, there are reports tonight, Michael, that the Pope suffered a stroke just before his death, that he passed away from a stroke. The expectation in the Italian press is that that will be confirmed in the coming hours. All public events in Rome tonight have been cancelled, including all football games. Games that were scheduled to take place across Italy have been cancelled. 9 days of mourning to come in the Vatican and across the Catholic world, including 3 days of mourning in Spain as well. And at 8 o'clock tonight, Rome time, so overnight Australian time, the Pope's body will be placed in a coffin, and that will begin that long process towards his funeral and the election of a new pope.
Something you and I have covered here, Hugh, it bears striking similarities to the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, this dedication to service to the very, very end, meeting officials, carrying out, albeit in private quarters, they're doing their job to the very end as well, and the Pope was certainly doing that.
Absolutely. The parallels cannot be missed. Queen Elizabeth, when she passed away in 2022, held on knowing that she had to complete a job. That was the changeover of Prime Minister between Boris Johnson and Liz Truss. Back then, they, of course, had to travel to Balmoral. The Pope would have known that he needed to be around for Easter. And once his job was complete, it's clear that God's calling happened.
All right, Hugh, thank you. Appreciate your experience with this as well. We have many more guests ahead as well, but for now, thank you. Now, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has fought back tears tonight as he spoke about the life of Pope Francis, who never visited Australia, but we're told had a deep affection for our country. Our reporter Josh Martin joins us from Melbourne, where the PM has been praying for His Holiness. Josh.
Good evening, Michael. Yes, Anthony Albanese was quite emotional tonight. He went to St Patrick's Cathedral here in Melbourne to pray for Pope Francis, and he also gave us some remarks. And he is a lifelong Catholic, Anthony Albanese himself. He went to school at St Mary's Cathedral College in Sydney and attended Easter Sunday Mass just yesterday at St Mary's Cathedral, so he was quite shaken by learning this news about Pope Francis. Now, Anthony Albanese has reflected on the Pope. He says Pope Francis embraced all humanity. He also said that the Pope urged us to remember what we had in common rather than what divided us, and also described the Pope as a modernist. He also remembered that the Pope had travelled to our region, visiting Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, Singapore and Timor-Leste. Let's take a listen to the Prime Minister reflecting on Pope Francis's life.
Australian Catholics and faithful around the world give thanks for the life of their Holy Father, Pope Francis, Bishop of Rome. Today, the prayers of more than 1 billion people from all nations and every walk of life go with Pope Francis to his rest. Pope Francis' compassion embraced all humanity, and today he will be mourned by Catholics and non-Catholics alike. My sincere condolences to everyone who, for tonight, it will be a very difficult evening. Thank you.
Michael, Liberal leader Peter Dutton has also reflected on Pope Francis's life and service. He said he had the utmost devotion to the Christian faith, and he's also described the Pope as being driven by mercy and forgiveness. Let's take a listen to Peter Dutton.
On behalf of the Coalition, I express my condolences to Australians of Catholic and Christian faith upon the very sad news of the death of the 266th Pontiff. His Holiness Pope Francis served God with the utmost devotion throughout his life. He lived frugally and simply. Above all else, he was driven by Christ's values of mercy and forgiveness. With God, may Pope Francis rest in peace.
Michael, the Prime Minister has announced that all Commonwealth government flags and buildings will fly flags at half-mast tomorrow as a respect to Pope Francis and Catholics here in Australia. We're also expecting potentially Peter Dutton and Anthony Albanese to scale back the level of campaigning. Of course, we are in a federal election campaign with just 12 days until polling day, but both leaders understand that tonight's events are significant to a lot of Australians, especially Catholic Australians. Michael?
All right, Josh in Melbourne, thank you. Let's go live now to Angelique Opie at St Mary's Cathedral in Sydney. And Angel, the Archbishop there, has paid a special tribute to his friend, the Holy Father.
Michael, he spoke not too long ago here at his home nearby at St Mary's Cathedral. While there was no official service, flowers were left outside. We saw mourners and passers-by paying their respects. There are more than 5 million Catholics across the country, more than 500,000 in Sydney alone, all coming to terms with the loss of the Pope tonight. The Archbishop, Anthony Fischer, spoke to media before recounting his own experience and his relationship with the Pope, expressing how Australians will be feeling both grief and gratitude at this time.
I always found him very easy to talk to, very informal, rather like an Australian in that respect. I think that there will be grief and gratitude. I've already received messages tonight from Jewish and Muslim leaders of condolence. Something very beautiful about Australia, that we do share in each other's griefs and joys.
We have also heard from the Anglican community, the Archbishop extending his sympathy to all Catholics tonight, and from the New South Wales Premier in a statement, he says that Pope Francis was a pope of the people. Now here at St Mary's Cathedral, for anyone who wants to attend a service, they can do so in the early hours of tomorrow. The first one will be held at 6:45 with a lunchtime service to be led by the Archbishop. All the details are on the St Mary's Cathedral website.
All right, Angelique there, thank you. Let's go to Melbourne again now. This hour, Bethan Yeoman joins us from St Patrick's Cathedral in East Melbourne, where we saw the Prime Minister earlier. Beth, hello to you. There's new details for how those in Victoria can pay tributes tomorrow.
Michael, we were expecting mourners here this evening, but the Archbishop of St Patrick's here in Melbourne is travelling interstate. He posted a brief message online just earlier calling Pope Francis a father of the poor and a witness of joy. He's calling on the community to come here tomorrow to pay their respects and to pray. The church will be open from the early hours of tomorrow morning, and the Archbishop is expected to speak sometime in the afternoon. Also joining the tributes online, our Premier Jacinta Allen, writing on X that Pope Francis was a tireless advocate for the poor and a relentless voice for the marginalised. Our opposition leader Brad Batten also offering his condolences, calling the pontiff's devotion admirable and abiding. St Patrick's Cathedral here in Melbourne is known as the Mother Church of the Catholic Archdiocese of Melbourne, and will no doubt be the primary place people gather tomorrow to remember the 88-year-old Michael.
All right, Bethan, thank you for that. And obviously reactions coming through all around the world, but world leaders from the US to Europe tonight paying their tribute to Pope Francis. Our correspondent Jackie Robson's in London this evening. Jackie, hello to you. The King and Queen are leading those tributes.
They certainly are, Michael. It was just earlier this month that King Charles and Queen Camilla had visited the Pope during their recent state visit to Italy, and all the while the two men had been suffering major health complications. The King with his cancer battle having an unexpected hospital visit, and then Pope Francis battling double pneumonia. But that meeting happened nonetheless, and the King shared his thoughts and his sadness of the recent passing. It went on to say, "My wife and I are deeply saddened to learn of the death of Pope Francis. Our heavy hearts have been somewhat eased to know that His Holiness was able to share an Easter greeting with the Church and the world he served with such devotion throughout his life." Here in London, the Westminster Cathedral has lowered the Vatican flag to half-mast. The UK Prime Minister also passing on his condolences. He said Pope Francis's leadership was during a complex and challenging time for the world, and the Church was often courageous, yet always came with deep humility. Pope Francis was for the poor, the downtrodden and the forgotten, he said. It's the types of sentiments being shared across the world. French President Emmanuel Macron was one of the first to react to the news. He said Pope Francis wanted the Church to bring joy and hope to the poorest, to unite people with one another and with nature. US President JD Vance, as we heard a little earlier, was the last dignitary to meet the late Pope. It was less than 24 hours ago, and it was a brief meeting. Today, the Vice President said it was clear the Pope was very ill, saying he'll always remember him for a homily he gave during the early days of COVID. He described it as being quite beautiful, and there are reactions underway globally. The common thread is that this was the Pope of the people and one of humility. Michael?
All right, Jackie there from London tonight with World Reaction. Appreciated. Stay with us as we continue on our special coverage of Pope Francis's death. A live look at the Vatican City, where we'll return next to speak to our experts on the ground. Also joining me live, Archbishop Fischer from St Mary's Cathedral for a few more words, one of Australia's most senior Catholics, with his very personal reaction to this breaking news. And what next? History's about to unfold. Millions are expected to travel to the Vatican to pay tribute. We go behind the conclave. The quite amazing details about how the new Pope is chosen and how Pope Francis changed the world. His legacy remembered. A leader who delivered great change in his 88 years on this earth. Thank you for watching this 7 News special coverage of the Pope's passing. Back in a minute.
I love travelling and I love adventure. Knowing COTA can assist me with my travel insurance gives me total peace of mind.
At COTA Insurance, there are no age limits on some travel insurance policies. Call COTA Insurance to open up your travel dreams again.
I really need a holiday, and with Travel Auctions, I'm about to get it. I just hit the website, choose my perfect holiday. River, coast, let's go tropical. I name my price, and if I'm one of the top bidders, holiday sorted. Yes, I'm out of here. Visit travelauctions.com.au and bid, win, go.
An important question for all men and women over 40 years of age. Are you ready to take control of your heart and overall health? One answer is trying Bergamet Advanced today. Bergamet Advanced, with the patented extract BJE 100, exclusive to Nat Health Solutions, supports heart and liver health as well as blood circulation and relieves inflammation. Order Bergamet Advanced at bergamet.com.au or call 1300 977 889.
A great night's sleep can make all the difference. It can be the difference between having dreams and making them come true. A great night's sleep, night after night after night. That is the difference. The difference is Temper.
The human eye, a marvel of biological engineering, capable of adjusting its focus to the things that matter most. See how by simply viewing an image of the reef, you can help protect it. Donate your focus at greatreefcensus.org.
Thank you for your company on this special edition of 7 News. And joining me now is the Archbishop of Sydney, the Most Reverend Anthony Fischer. Very good to have your company this evening. I guess my first question to you is, Archbishop, just your personal reflections on Pope Francis and how you will remember him.
Well, I'd say first and foremost, Michael, that I'll remember him with great gratitude. He's done so much good for our church and our world in his 12 years as the Pope. Many Catholics, probably many people who were far from the church, were brought closer to the church in his time. Many people are grateful for his messages of peace and of inclusion, of respect for every human being, of his emphasising mercy, the mercy of God, that we can all, every one of us, know that we are loved by God from all eternity to all eternity, and that he'll forgive whatever has happened, whatever mess in our life there's been. He'll have us back every time. That was a very strong message from Pope Francis, and one that I think I'll carry with me for the rest of my life, and many people around the world will too.
Yeah, Archbishop, to that point of mercy, there was an image only a few days ago of the Pope actually visiting prisoners, which he had made a tradition of as well, I think, going behind bars to sit with them and talk with them as well. And I think you would share this thought. I've read online this evening in various articles that there's an affection that the Pope got through the holiest time of the year for the Church and through Easter Sunday. So dedication, duty and faith to the very, very end.
Yes, it's a very beautiful thing from our point of view as Christians and Catholics that he did get to live to Easter, and that he did get to give his last message on Easter Sunday, a message of hope and of his own faith in the resurrection, in the promise of eternal life. And now he's experiencing that himself. And it is a wonderful thing that on the way there he could give us the example of the dignity of someone in old age and in suffering and in dying, because we now realise he was dying over the last several weeks in his sickness. But he kept going to the end, kept serving his God and his people as best he could to his last breath.
Archbishop, I read among his many reforms, in fact, relate to this very moment now, in that he reformed quite significantly the way that he will now be buried and the rituals around the next few days. I think he requested a simple wooden coffin, and quite remarkably, he will be the first pope to be buried outside St. Peter's. Share with me some of those changes that he made to this ritual of his funeral ahead in the next few days.
I think that the Pope wanted to make the point that we're not burying a king, we're burying a pastor, and he wanted that to be very clear in the way of his own burial, that it would be simpler than it was in days gone by. It's still the burial of a pope. There's still going to be millions of people watching and hundreds of thousands or millions in the square when he's buried. But he wanted to be buried in St Mary Major Church, not at St Peter's Basilica. That's a church he loved. He used to visit there every time he went overseas, and when he got back he would visit there to say a prayer and to pray to Mary as a mother and protectress. And so I think it's a lovely thing that he's chosen to be buried in a place like that as a statement of his humility, but I think also of his real devotion to Mary and the saints.
I think we have some images of yourself and the Pope we might bring up and have a look at as well as we continue our conversation here, Archbishop. We always like to know a little bit of the behind the scenes and what's the person really like, and I guess that applies to the Pope as well. How did you find him in personal company, Archbishop?
Well, I got to meet the Pope many times, at least once a year, maybe more than once a year in many years of the last 12. And I always found him very easy to talk to. He was quite informal. You might say he was rather Australian in his manner compared to people of such significance historically or around our world. I found him a true pastor too. Something that I will remember till the day I die was that after I buried my mother here in Australia, I had to go straight to a meeting in Rome, and I met the Pope there only 2 or 3 days after I'd buried my mother. And as soon as he met me, he said, "My condolences on the death of your mum." Now, how he knew, how he remembered when he must have met 1,000 people a day was quite remarkable, and a real sign of a pastor's heart, of a real love for people and a sensitivity to their grief. And now the world grieves him with a similar grief.
Indeed. Well, thank you for sharing that story too, Archbishop. The Church is always challenged, faith is always challenged. What challenges does the new Pope face, whoever that may be?
I think we're in very interesting times for the Catholic Church around the world. There are parts of the world where it's growing dramatically, particularly in Africa and Asia. There are other parts of the world where it's shrinking, where it was traditionally bigger. But even in those places, these things go in different directions. So right now here in Australia, many parts of the Church would say they've had the biggest attendances at Easter ceremonies that they have ever had. That we have more people in our seminaries than we've had for 40 years, that we have more people joining processions and different church activities than we've had for decades. So while it may be that the numbers ticking the box of Christian are fewer, those who are ticking that box, I think, are more intentional and more serious about it. So the new Pope will be coming into a very interesting time in history where you've got trends both towards faith and more secular trends going hand in hand across many countries, including our own.
Well, we best let you go because I know you've got an early morning service there, and I'm guessing that the pews are going to be pretty full in the morning as you remember Pope Francis. But Archbishop Anthony Fischer, very much appreciate you speaking with us this evening.
God bless you, and a very happy Easter to all the viewers.
Indeed, thank you. Well, stay with us as we continue with our special coverage of Pope Francis's death.
At
some thrill to your weight with the thrill of a $40 million jackpot every 3 minutes. Keno Go. Download the app now.
Are you seeking a caring, ethical and environmentally friendly alternative to cremation? Discover aquamation, a revolutionary process that uses water instead of fire. As Australia's only aquamation provider, Environmentally Friendly Cremations offers a greener farewell that's gentle on loved ones and the planet. Whether you choose direct aquamation or a full green funeral service, we're here to provide personalised care. Call John at 0433 336 722 for the support you deserve.
You know what's better than a Big Four bank?
A bank that's bigger for me. Bigger for making my money work harder.
And helping my business make it.
Bigger for helping us to buy a home.
Bigger for the community I care about.
My bank is bigger for what matters most. As Australia's most trusted bank, 2.5 million Aussies know that Bendigo Bank is bigger for them. And we're bigger for you.
Bendigo Bank, the better big bank.
Every year, over 1,000 children are diagnosed with cancer. They can't find a cure by themselves. They need our help, and we need yours.
RSPCA's Million Paws Walk is your chance to be a superhero for dogs in need. You can help give over 17,000 dogs a better life by fundraising and walking with your best mate. Help fight animal cruelty for the final Million Paws Walk in May. Walkies! 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 Find an RSPCA event near you and sign up today for one last lap. Head to millionpawswalk.com.au now to grab your tickets.
Well, thank you for joining our special 7 News special. There will be many memories of Pope Francis shared in the days ahead. Each one will be deeply personal and spiritual, but together they paint a picture of a man and a priest who brought the Catholic Church into a new era, accepting the pain of its past, and for many, that meant the healing could begin.
March 2013. White smoke rises from the Vatican. The 266th Pope is chosen.
Brothers and sisters, I'll leave you now, but thank you so much for your welcome. Please pray for me.
Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio takes on the papacy from the retiring Pope Benedict. A relative outsider, a Jesuit from Argentina, the first Latin American to lead the Catholic Church, beginning his papacy aged 76. Seen as having the common touch with liberal views on social matters, wanting to rid the Church of corruption and deal directly with the shame of past child abuse. He ditched the Pope-mobiles for a standard Fiat hatchback.
It hurts me to see a priest with a car that is the latest model. It's just not right.
Running the centuries-old institution with traditional church values but a modern influence. With huge followings on Twitter and Instagram. Born in 1936, his parents, Italian migrants. He studied in Argentina and Germany, held degrees in chemistry, philosophy and theology, paid bills by working as a cleaner, even a bouncer at a bar, first ordained a priest, aged 33. Becoming a bishop in the 1990s, the Archbishop of Buenos Aires in 1998. He chose his papal name Francis after a warrior from the 12th century who fought for the poor, animals and the environment. The Pope, who became famous for his smile. He became Time Person of the Year in 2013, won the same title from an LGBT magazine, declaring gay people shouldn't be judged but deserve an apology. His papacy at times, though, struggling to overcome the Church's past failures, confronting child abuse scandals around the world, promising zero tolerance and begging for forgiveness, garnering the attention and respect of world leaders, even the more controversial ones. maintaining an extraordinary travel diary. Brazil, Cuba, Kenya, Sri Lanka, Iraq, and last year, Indonesia, East Timor and Papua New Guinea. But unlike his predecessor, Francis never made it to Australia. In recent years, there'd been multiple hospital visits, ongoing battles with a bad knee, often relying on a wheelchair. His final battle, double pneumonia, cheating death twice during a lengthy hospital stay in Rome's Gemelli Hospital. Determined, he made a series of surprise appearances, including in St Peter's Square on Easter Sunday, just 24 hours ago. And a final meeting with US Vice President J.D. Vance. He died aged 88. A Pope of the New World, Francis. Hugh Whitfeld, 7 News.
And so the Pope now ascends to meet his Holy Father after an Easter Sunday spent in solemn prayer and reflection on the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It just somehow seems right that this was the way Christ's vicar on earth would use his final thoughts and breath. Now begins a period of deep mourning for Catholics right around the world and an extraordinary series of rituals to honour and lay to rest this Pope and choose a new one. A man elected by mere men to rise to the almighty task of guiding the faith of the 1.4 billion Catholics around the world. I'm Michael Usher. Thanks for your company. Good night.
The 7 News app will give you the news you want. Download now.